June 1944, Normandy. The air reeked of diesel and cordite, a bitter haze that clung to the hedgerows where German tanks crouched like wounded beasts. Colonel Hans Mueller, a grizzled officer of the Wehrmacht Euro S 7th Panzer Division, scribbled in his diary under the flicker of a lantern. His hands, stained with oil and dirt, trembled as he wrote, "Duty keeps us moving, but fuel keeps us alive. Without it, we are statues in a war of motion." Mueller Euro S Division had burned through 10,000 gallons of fuel in a single week, their Panzer IVs grinding to a halt as Allied forces surged from the beaches. What drove a man like Mueller to keep fighting? The answer lay in the lifeblood of the German war machine: fuel. World War II was a war of machines, and machines drank fuel like water. Germania Euro S Blitzkrieg, the lightning war that had crushed Poland in 1939 and France in 1940, relied on mobility. Tanks, trucks, and planes demanded millions of gallons daily. Historian Adam Tooze notes that by 1941, Germany consumed 7.2 million tons of oil annually, yet produced only 1.2 million tons domestically. The rest came from conquered territories, synthetic fuel plants, and dwindling Romanian imports. By 1944, the situation was dire. Allied bombings had crippled refineries, and the Soviet advance cut off Romanian fields. Mueller Euro S diary, recovered post-war, reveals his growing dread. Each day, we ration fuel by the liter. My men beg for movement, but we sit, waiting. Mueller was no ordinary officer. At 42, he had served in the Great War, surviving the mud of Verdun. His memoir, preserved in Berliner Euro S Bundesarchiv, paints a man torn between duty and despair. He commanded respect, not through fear, but through precision, calculating fuel needs with the care of a surgeon. Yet, in June 1944, his division faced a grim reality. A single Panzer needed 100 gallons for a day of Euro S fighting. With 50 tanks, Mueller Euro S unit required 5,000 gallons daily a Euro, more than their weekly supply. The Wehrmacht Euro S logistics reports, declassified in 1990, show Germania Euro S fuel reserves at 1.5 million tons in mid-1944, barely enough for 3 months of full operations. The Allies, by contrast, swam in fuel. The United States produced 1.3 billion gallons of gasoline in 1944 alone, per U.S. Army records. Their M4 Sherman tanks, less fuel-hungry than Panzers, rolled across Normandy with supply lines stretching back to England. American convoys, guarded by air cover, delivered 20,000 gallons daily to Falaise. As noted in General Omar Bradley's Euro S dispatches, Mueller Euro S diary entry from June 10, 1944, captures his envy. American trucks move like ants, endless, fueled by an ocean we cannot touch. How do they keep moving? The German High Command clung to illusions. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, overseeing Western Front defenses, wrote in a June 1944 report, "Our spirit will outlast their machines." Fuel shortages were dismissed as temporary, solvable by capturing enemy supplies. This belief drove Mueller Euro S mission. On June 15, 1944, near Cannes, his scouts reported an American supply depot, lightly guarded, holding thousands of gallons of fuel. Mueller saw a chance a Euro, not just to refuel, but to turn the tide. His diary reads, "If we seize their fuel, we strike at their heart." The plan was bold, a night raid, silent, under the cover of a moonless sky. The raid was a gamble. Mueller Euro S-men, exhausted, moved through fields slick with rain, their boots sinking into mud that smelled of decay. The depot, a cluster of steel drums under camouflage nets, shimmered in the darkness. By 2 a.m., they struck, overpowering the guards in minutes. The haul was staggering, 50,000 gallons of high-octane U.S. fuel, enough to keep his division mobile for weeks. Mueller Euro S memoir describes the moment. "My men cheered, their faces lit by starlight. For the first time in months, we felt alive." But as they siphoned the fuel, Mueller noticed something chilling. The drums were marked with American production, Codessa, Euro, endless, uniform, dated weeks apart. This was no desperate stockpile. It was a fraction of an endless supply. That night, Mueller sat alone, his lantern casting shadows on his diary. He wrote, "This fuel is not a victory. It is a mirror, showing our doom." The realization hit like a shell. Germania Euro S war was not just about battles, but about resources a Euro, and the Allies had them in abundance. Historian Ian Kershaw notes that by 1944, Germania Euro S logistics collapsed under Allied pressure. Mueller Euro S capture, a fleeting triumph, revealed a truth: no raid could bridge the gap. What did this mean for a man who had fought for years? The answer would come in the weeks ahead, as the fuel burned out and Germania Euro S fate was sealed. June 16, 1944, Cannes. Dawn broke over Normandy Euro S shattered fields, the air heavy with the stench of burning rubber and oil. Colonel Hans Mueller stood beside his Panzer IV, its engine idling on stolen American fuel. The 50,000 gallons captured last night hummed through his division like a pulse. But Mueller-ES face was grim. His diary, tucked inside his mud-stained coat, bore a new entry. We have their fuel, but what have we won? The horizon roared with distant artillery, a reminder that the Allies were closing in. Could this raid change the Wehrmacht-ES course? Mueller knew the answer before his men stopped cheering. The fuel was a lifeline, but a fleeting one. Wehrmacht-ES 7th Panzer Division, with 50 tanks and 200 vehicles, burned 5,000 gallons daily in combat, per Wehrmacht logistics reports. The captured 50,000 gallons a euro, enough for 10 days a euro, felt like a fortune. Yet Mueller-ES calculations, scribbled in his memoir, revealed the truth. We need 10 such raids a month to fight as we did in 1940. Germania-ES fuel crisis was no secret. By mid-1944, the Reich-ES oil reserves had dwindled to 1.2 million tons, barely 2 months a euro, supply at full operations. According to historian Adam Tooze, synthetic fuel plants, bombed relentlessly by Allied air forces, produced only 300,000 tons monthly. Half of 1943 levels, Mueller-ES men, unaware of the math, celebrated. Young Lieutenant Carl Fischer, barely 22, grinned as he fueled a half-track, the liquid glinting like gold in the morning light. Mueller-ES diary captures the moment. My men see hope in these drums, but I see numbers. Numbers that betray us. The American fuel, high octane and pure, powered their Panzers better than Germania-ES synthetic blend. But the markings on the drums endless codes from refineries in Texas and Pennsylvania haunted Mueller. The U.S. produced 1.3 billion gallons of fuel in 1944, per U.S. Army records, while Germany scraped by with 50 million. One raid could not close that gap. Back at his command post, a crumbling farmhouse near Cannes, Mueller pored over maps under a flickering bulb. His radio crackled with reports. Allied Shermans advancing, their engines roaring without pause. General Omar Bradley-ES dispatches, declassified post-war show the U.S. First Army had 100,000 gallons in reserve near Normandy, with convoys delivering 20,000 more daily. Mueller-ES memoir reflects his growing unease. Their tanks move as if fuel is air, endless, while we count every drop. He reported the raid-ES success to Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, expecting praise. Instead, Rundstedt-ES reply, preserved in Berlin-ES Bundesarchiv, was curt: capture more. Hold the line. The German High Command clung to a fading doctrine. Since 1941, they believed Blitzkrieg-ES speed could outmatch Allied resources. Rundstedt-ES 1944 reports insisted: seize enemy supplies, and we endure. But Mueller saw through the illusion. His diary entry from June 17 reads, "We steal their fuel, but they have oceans more. We are bandits, not victors." The raid-ES success was a mirage. Historian Ian Kershaw notes that Germania-ES logistics collapsed as Allied air raids targeted fuel depots. By June 1944, Luftwaffe sorties dropped 70% due to fuel shortages, per German Air Force logs. Mueller-ES men, meanwhile, pushed forward, their tanks rumbling on stolen fuel. The hedgerows of Normandy, tangled and thick, hid Allied anti-tank guns. A skirmish on June 18 cost Mueller 3 Panzers, burning 1,500 gallons in hours. His memoir describes the chaos. The air shook with explosions, and my tanks stood still, fuel tanks dry. His men, once jubilant, grew quiet, their faces smudged with soot. Fischer, the young lieutenant, whispered to Mueller, "Will this fuel save us, sir?" Mueller-ES silence was answer enough. The raid-ES aftermath forced Mueller to confront a deeper truth. The American supply chain, vast and unbroken, stretched across the Atlantic. A single U.S. convoy carried more fuel than his division could dream of. Military historian John Ellis estimates the Allies shipped 500 million gallons to Europe in 1944, dwarfing Germania-ES entire stockpile. Mueller-ES diary reflects his despair. "We fight with buckets against their rivers." The stolen fuel, a fleeting spark, only illuminated Germania-ES doom. What could one colonel do against such odds? The answer lay in the battles to come, as the fuel dwindled and the Allies advanced. June 20, 1944, Normandy. The stolen fuel burned fast, its fumes a fleeting promise in the damp morning air. Colonel Hans Mueller stood atop a hill overlooking Cannes, the distant rumble of Allied artillery shaking the earth. His diary, tucked in his pocket, bore ink smudged by sweat. "We move, but each mile costs us dearly. The fuel is not salvation it is a countdown." His 7th Panzer Division, now down to 45 tanks, consumed 3,000 gallons daily in skirmishes. The 50,000 gallons captured days ago were half gone, siphoned into engines that roared defiantly, but could not outrun reality. What did it mean to fight when the numbers were against you? Germania-Euro-S fuel crisis was no longer a whisper but a scream. By June 1944, Wehrmacht reports declassified post-war showed reserves at 1 million tons, enough for 6 weeks of full operations. Synthetic fuel plants, battered by Allied bombs, limped at 200,000 tons monthly. Per historian Adam Tooze, Memoirs-Euro-S division, once a spearhead of blitzkrieg, was reduced to scavenging. His memoir, preserved in Berliner Euro-S Bundesarchiv, reveals his torment. My men drive on stolen fuel, but we cannot steal time. Each tank, each truck, each liter brings us closer to the end. At his command post, a shelled-out barn reeking of mold and oil, Mueller met with his officers. Lieutenant Karl Fischer, his youthful optimism fading. Reported fuel levels, 22,000 gallons left, sir. Enough for a week, if we recautious. Euro-S eyes traced the map, its edges curling from humidity. Red markers showed Allied advances, Euro Shermans rolling without pause, their fuel trucks a constant stream. U.S. Army logistics, per General Dwight Eisenhower Euro-S reports, delivered 30,000 gallons daily to Normandy. Euro-S front line. Mueller Euro-S diary entry from June 21 reads, their supply lines are rivers. Ours are drying streams. The High Command of Euro-S orders were unrelenting. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, in a June 20 dispatch, demanded, hold can at all costs. Capture more fuel. Mueller scoffed, his breath visible in the chilly barn. Capture more. From where? The Americans had endless depots, guarded by air cover and infantry. A single U.S. supply convoy, per military historian John Ellis, carried 100,000 gallons across Normandy, protected by P-47 Thunderbolts. Germania Euro-S Luftwaffe, crippled by fuel shortages, flew only 200 sorties daily, down 80% from 1941, per Luftwaffe logs. Mueller wrote, their planes darken the sky, while ours rust on the ground. On June 22, Mueller led a desperate counterattack near Falaise. His Panzers, fueled by the stolen U.S. gasoline, surged through fields thick with the scent of crushed wheat. The clash was brutal. Euro 5 Shermans destroyed, but at the cost of 2 Panzers and 2,000 gallons. Fischer, bloodied but alive, reported back, we hit them hard, sir, but they keep coming. Mueller Euro-S memoir captures the moment. The Americans lose tanks, but their fuel flows like blood in veins. We bleed out. The skirmish gained a mile, but the fuel gauge dropped faster than the anemia. Euro-S morale. Mueller Euro-S realization deepened. The captured fuel, a triumph days ago, was a cruel mirror. The U.S. produced 1.3 billion gallons of fuel in 1944, per U.S. Army records, while Germania Euro-S entire stockpile was 50 million gallons. One raid could not compete with factories in Texas pumping out fuel faster than Panzers could burn it. Historian Ian Kershaw notes that by mid-1944, Allied logistics overwhelmed Germania Euro-S crumbling supply chain. Mueller Euro-S diary reflects this. We steal drops from their ocean and call it victory. How long can we pretend? That night, under a sky lit by distant explosions, Mueller gathered his men. Their faces, gaunt and shadowed, reflected the toll of endless fighting. He spoke softly, his voice barely above the wind. We fight for Germany, but fuel fights for them. Fischer, clutching a letter from home, asked, can we outlast them, sir? Mueller Euro-S. Silence hung heavy. His memoir, written later, reveals his thoughts. I wanted to say yes, but the numbers said no. The stolen fuel was a spark in a dying fire, and Mueller knew it. What could one colonel do against an enemy that never stopped moving? The answer lay in the battles ahead, as the fuel dwindled and Germania Euro's fate loomed closer. June 25, 1944. Normandy, the horizon glowed red, a distant firestorm where Allied bombs tore through German lines. Colonel Hans Mueller crouched in a foxhole, the air thick with the acrid sting of smoke and diesel. His diary, its pages curling from damp, held a hurried scrawl. The fuel keeps us moving, but toward what? Defeat breathes down our necks. His 7th Panzer Division, now down to 40 tanks, had burned through 35,000 of the 50,000 stolen gallons in 10 days. Each rumble of his panzers felt like a heartbeat fading. Could they outrun the inevitable? The German High Command of Euro-S denial was a wall of steel. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, headquartered in Paris, sent orders via radio, seize more fuel, hold Normandy. Mueller Euro-S memoir, preserved in Berliner Euro-S Bundesarchiv, reveals his frustration. They demand miracles from men with empty tanks. Wehrmacht, logistics reports from June 1944, declassified post-war, painted a grim picture. Germania Euro-S fuel reserves stood at 900,000 tons, enough for a month of full operations. Allied air raids had reduced synthetic fuel output to 150,000 tons monthly. Per historian Adam Tooze, Mueller knew the truth. No raid could fill that void. At a makeshift command post a shattered church, its stained glass crunching underfoot. Mueller briefed his officers. Lieutenant Karl Fischer, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. Reported 15,000 gallons left, sir. For days, maybe 5. The men a Euro S faces, lit by a flickering candle, mirrored Mura Euro S dread. His diary entry from June 26 reads, "We fight with stolen fuel, but the Allies fight with time." They have both. U.S. Army records show the Allies delivered 40,000 gallons daily to Normandy, their convoys snaking through hedgerows under P-51 Mustang escorts. Mueller wrote, "Their trucks never stop. Their planes never land." Rundstede Euro Chess insistence on capturing fuel was a fantasy rooted in 1,940 euros. Splits. A June 1944 OKW Oberkommando der Wehrmacht report claimed, "Enemy supplies are finite. Our will is not." Mueller saw through the lie. The stolen fuel, high-octane and flawless, mocked Germania Euro S synthetic sludge. Each American drum, marked with codes from refineries across the Atlantic, told a story of abundance. The U.S. produced 1.3 billion gallons of fuel in 1944, per U.S. Army data, while Germania Euro S total output was 50 million. Historian John Ellis notes that Allied logistics, with 600 million gallons shipped to Europe, crushed Germania Euro S hopes. On June 27, Muara Euro S division faced a brutal test. Allied forces, led by General George Patton, Euro S Third Army, pushed toward Muara Euro S Panzers, fueled by the dwindling U.S. gasoline, ambushed a U.S. column. The clash was fierce. Euro 3, Sherman's destroyed, but for Panzers lost, burning 3,000 gallons in hours. Fisher, blood streaking his face, shouted over the din, "They keep coming, sir." Muara Euro S memoir captures the chaos. "The air was fire, and our tanks stood still, fuel gauges empty. The skirmish gained nothing but graves." Muara Euro S realization crystallized in the church that night, its walls trembling from distant explosions. He wrote, "We steal their fuel, but they have empires of it. We are ants fighting a flood." The High Commando Euro S orders, blind to reality, echoed pre-war arrogance. In 1941, General Heinz Guderian had warned in his diary, "Without fuel, blitzkrieg is a dream." Yet OKW dismissed shortages as tactical setbacks. Luftwaffe reports showed only 150 sorties daily, down 85% from 1941. Crippled by fuel scarcity. Muara Euro S diary reflects his despair. "Our planes are ghosts. Our tanks are tombs." Fisher, clutching a worn photo of his family, asked Mueller, "Can we hold them, sir?" The Colonel Euro S silence was louder than the artillery. His memoir reveals his thoughts. "I see the end, but they demand I fight on." The stolen fuel, now a fading spark, exposed Germania Euro S delusion. The Elisa Euro, endless supply lines, documented by General Eisenhower Euro ES staff, rolled ENA Euro 100,000 gallons daily, untouched by German raids. What could one colonel do against such a tide? The answer lay in the days ahead, as the fuel ran dry and Germania Euro S illusions crumbled further. July 1, 1944, Normandy. The summer air was thick with the stench of scorched metal and earth, churned by relentless Allied shelling. Colonel Hans Mueller leaned against a shattered oak, its bark splintered by shrapnel, and wrote in his diary, "The fuel is nearly gone, and with it, our hope." His 7th Panzer Division, now reduced to 32 tanks, had burned through 45,000 of the stolen 50,000 gallons. The engines growled weakly, each movement a gasp. Muara Euro S eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights, scanned the horizon where American tanks advanced like a tide. How could a single raid have felt like victory? Germania Euro S fuel crisis was a death knell. Wehrmacht reports, declassified post-war, showed reserves at 700,000 tons by July 1944. Enough for mere weeks of full operations. Allied bombings had slashed synthetic fuel production to 100,000 tons monthly. Per historian Adam Tooze, Muara Euro S division, once a symbol of Blitzkrieg Euro S might, was paralyzed. His memoir, preserved in Berliner Euro S Bundesarchiv, reveals his anguish. "We are chained to empty tanks, while the enemy moves freely." The stolen fuel, a fleeting triumph, was down to 5,000 gallons a Euro, barely to deci Euro. Worth. In a muddy trench, Mueller met his officers under a sky heavy with smoke. Lieutenant Carl Fischer, his uniform torn, reported, "We have 4,800 gallons left, sir. We can a Euro T hold can." Muara Euro S diary entry from July 2 reads, "My men look to me for answers, but I have none." The American supply lines, endless and unbroken, delivered 50,000 gallons daily to Normandy, per General Dwight Eisenhower Euro S logs. Us Shermans, fueled by refineries across the Atlantic, rolled without pause. Mueller wrote, "Their machines breathe fuel like air. Ours choke on fumes." The High Commando Euro S delusions grew louder. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, in a July 1 dispatch, ordered, "Fight to the last drop. Seize more depots." Muara Euro S response, sent via encrypted radio, was bold for a loyal officer. "With what fuel, sir?" We cannot move. Runstead the Euro-S reply, preserved in OKW archives, dismissed him. Your duty is to fight, not to question. The High Command clung to 1940 Euro-S myths, believing spirit could outmatch resources. Historian Ian Kershaw notes that by July 1944, Germania Euro-ES logistics were in freefall, with Luftwaffe sorties down to 100 daily, a 90% drop from 1941. Per Air Force records. On July 3, Mueller Euro-S division faced a devastating Allied assault near his Panzers, scraping the last of the stolen fuel, charged into a wall of Shermans and anti-tank guns. The air roared with explosions, the ground trembling as if alive. 6 Panzers were lost, burning 2,000 gallons an hour. Fisher, his face smeared with ash, shouted, "Thea, Euro, everywhere, sir." Mueller Euro's memoir captures the despair. My tanks died not in battle, but in stillness. Fuel tanks dry. The skirmish cost them ground and men, with nothing gained. That night, in a shelled-out village, Mueller confronted the truth. His diary reads, "The fuel was a lie we told ourselves. We stole a drop from their ocean and called it hope." The U.S. produced 1.3 billion gallons of fuel in 1944, per U.S. Army data, while Germania Euro-S reserves were a mere 40 million gallons. Allied convoys, protected by air cover, delivered 600 million gallons to Europe. Per John Ellis Mueller, Euro-S realization was stark. No raid could match such abundance. He wrote, "We are not fighting a war. We are delaying defeat." Fisher, clutching a letter from his sister, asked, "Sir, why do they keep coming?" Mueller Euro-S silence was heavy, his memoir revealing his thoughts. "I see their trucks, their planes, their endless fuel. We are shadows fighting a storm." The High Command of Euro-S orders, blind to reality, echoed pre-war arrogance. In 1941, General Heinz Guderian had warned, "Fuel is our lifeblood. Without it, we are dead." Yet OKW dismissed shortages as cowardice. Mueller Euro-S diary entry ends. "They order us to fight, but we cannot run." What can one colonel do when the war is already lost? The answer lay in the days ahead, as the fuel ran out and Germania Euro-S illusions shattered. July 7, 1944, Normandy. The air was a furnace, heavy with the stench of burning oil and flesh. Colonel Hans Mueller stood in a cratered field, his boots sinking into mud, churned by weeks of war. His diary, its pages stained with soot, held a desperate entry. "The fuel is gone. We are ghosts, haunting our own machines." His 7th Panzer Division, now reduced to 25 tanks, had burned the last of the stolen 50,000 gallons. Engines fell silent, their metal husks littering the landscape like tombstones. Could Mueller Euro-S men fight on without fuel? The answer was written in the smoke rising from Can. Germania Euro-S war machine was starving. Wehrmacht logistics reports, declassified post-war, showed fuel reserves at 500,000 tons by July 1944, enough for mere days of full operations. Allied air raids had obliterated synthetic fuel plants, cutting output to 80,000 tons monthly. Per historian Adam Tooze, Mueller Euro-S division, once a blitzkrieg juggernaut, was immobilized. His memoir, preserved in Berliner Euro-S Bundesarchiv, reveals his torment. "My tanks are statues, my men are shadows. We fight for nothing but pride." The stolen fuel, a fleeting dream, had evaporated in 2 weeks. In a ruined schoolhouse, its walls scarred by shrapnel, Mueller faced his officers. Lieutenant Carl Fischer, his face gaunt, reported, "No fuel left, sir. We down to rifles and prayers." The men of Euro-S eyes, hollow with exhaustion, begged for hope. Mueller Euro-S diary, from July 8 reads, "I see their trust, but I carry only truth." The Allies, unstoppable, poured 60,000 gallons daily into Normandy. Per General Dwight Eisenhower Euro-ES records, their Shermans roared, their trucks rolled, fueled by an ocean of gasolinia. 1.3 billion gallons produced in 1944, per U.S. Army data. Mueller wrote, "Their machines live, ours are dead." The High Command of Euro-S denial was a fortress of delusion. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, in a July 7 dispatch, ordered, "Hold your ground. Reinforcements are coming." Mueller Euro-S reply, sent via crackling radio, was near insubordination. "With what, sir? We have no fuel, no tanks, no future." Rundstedt ta Euro-S response, preserved in OKW archives, was cold. "Your duty is to die for Germany." The High Command clung to myths of 1940, believing willpower could defy logistics. Historian Ian Kershaw notes that by July 1944, Germania Euro-S collapse was inevitable, with Luftwaffe sorties at 50 daily, a 95% drop from 1941, per Air Force logs. On July 9, the Allies launched Operation Cobra, a sledgehammer assault. Mueller Euro-S men, stranded without fuel, fought with rifles against Shermans. The air screamed with P-51 Mustangs, their shadows sweeping the earth. 10 Panzers, scavenged for scraps of fuel, were destroyed in hours. their crews swallowed by fire. Fisher, bleeding from a shrapnel wound, gasped, "They a Euro, re-unstoppable, sir." Mueller Euro's memoir captures the chaos. The ground shook, the sky burned, and we stood still, betrayed by empty tanks. The battle cost 200 men, and the last flicker of hope. That night, in the schoolhouse Euro's rubble, Mueller Euro's resolve broke. His diary reads, "The fuel was our lie, our excuse to believe. Now, only defeat remains." The U.S., with 600 million gallons shipped to Europe. Per John Ellis, mocked Germania Euro's 30 million gallon stockpile. Mueller saw the truth. No raid, no miracle, could match such abundance. In 1941, General Heinz Guderian had warned in his diary, "Without fuel, we are nothing." Yet OKW dismissed reality as defeatism. Mueller wrote, "They order us to die, but we are already dead." Fisher, clutching a faded photo of his family, whispered, "Is this the end, sir?" Mueller Euro's silence was a confession. His memoir reveals his thoughts. "I see their convoys, endless, fueled by a nation we cannot comprehend. We fought a myth. The High Command Euro's orders, divorced from reality, echoed pre-war arrogance." Mueller Euro's final act was a letter to Rundstedt preserved post-war. "We cannot fight without fuel. We cannot win without hope." The answer came not from Berlin, but from the advancing Allies. Their engines roaring with fuel Germany could never steal. What could one colonel do when the war was lost? The final chapter lay in the ashes of Normandy. July 15, 1944, Normandy. The air was choked with dust and despair, the ground littered with the husks of lifeless Panzers. Colonel Hans Mueller stood amidst the wreckage, his boots crunching on shattered glass and spent shells. His diary, its pages nearly full, bore a final entry: "We fought for fuel, but found only truth. Germany is finished." His 7th Panzer Division, now a skeleton of 15 tanks, had no fuel left. The stolen 50,000 gallons, a fleeting dream, had burned out in weeks. Allied tanks roared in the distance, their engines fed by an endless stream. What does a soldier do when his war is over? Germania Euro's collapse was no longer a question, but a fact. Wehrmacht reports, declassified post-war, showed fuel reserves at 300,000 tons by July 1944. Enough 4 days of sporadic fighting. Synthetic fuel plants, reduced to rubble by Allied bombs, produced a mere 50,000 tons monthly. Per historian Adam Tooze, Mueller Euro's division was a microcosm of the Reich Euro's fatigue. Euro immobilized, outmatched. His memoir, preserved in Berliner Euro's Bundesarchiv, reads, "We stole their fuel, but they stole our future." The U.S., with 1.3 billion gallons produced in 1944, per U.S. Army records, fueled an unstoppable war machine. In a crumbling barn, its roof half gone, Mueller gathered his remaining men. Lieutenant Karl Fischer, his face etched with defeat, whispered, "No fuel, no fight, sir." The men of Euro's eyes, hollow from hunger and loss, searched Mueller for answers. His diary from July 16 reads, "I led them to battle, but now I lead them to surrender." Allied convoys, delivering 70,000 gallons daily to Normandy, per General Dwight Eisenhower Euro's logs, rolled past German lines. Mueller wrote, "Their trucks are a river, drowning us in abundance." The High Command of Euro's denial had crumbled. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, replaced by Hitler in early July, left a legacy of delusion. His final report, preserved in OKW archives, admitted, "Without fuel, we cannot fight." Mueller Euro's pleas had been ignored, but reality could not be. Historian Ian Kershaw notes that by August 1944, Germania Euro's logistics were non-existent, with Luftwaffe sorties at 30 daily, a 98% drop from 1941, per Air Force logs. Mueller Euro's memoir reflects the betrayal. "They told us to die for Germany, but Germany died first." On July 17, Mueller Euro's division surrendered near Falaise. Allied forces, led by General George Patton, encircled them. The air buzzed with P-51 Mustangs, their engines a mocking hum. Mueller Euro's men, out of fuel and ammunition, laid down their rifles. Fisher, clutching a tattered family photo, wept, "We tried, sir." Mueller Euro's silence was his reply. His memoir captures the moment. The war ended, not in fire, but in stillness. Our tanks, our dreams, all silent. The Falaise Pocket, per U.S. Army records, trapped 50,000 Germans, with 10,000 killed and 40,000 captured. Mueller Euro's captivity brought clarity. In a POW camp, he learned the scale of Allied might. The U.S. shipped 600 million gallons of fuel to Europe in 1944. Per John Ellis, while Germania Euro's reserves were 20 million gallons. Mueller Euro's diary, recovered post-war, reads, "We fought a nation that built oceans while we begged for drops." In 1941, General Heinz Guderian had warned, "Fuel is victory." The High Command ignored him, blinded by arrogance. Mueller Euro's final entry reflects, "We lost because we believed in myths, not numbers." Germania Euro's surrender, in May 1945, sealed the truth Mueller saw in Normandy. The Reich Euro's collapse, hastened by fuel starvation, was a lesson in hubris. Post-war interrogations, documented by Allied historians, revealed OKWY Euro's refusal to accept fuel reports as defeatism. Mueller, released in 1947, wrote, "We were not defeated by men, but by machines we could not match." His story, preserved in memoirs, speaks to resilience and delusion. What would you write in your diary at WW2 end? The fuel that powered Germania Euro's dreams had run dry, leaving only ashes and lessons for history. Subscribe for more WW2 Tales. Like and comment your thoughts on Mueller Euro's story. These voices from the past demand to be heard.